The silence inside the Obsidian Room, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, was absolute. A fork clattering onto a plate would have sounded like a gunshot. Every eye was on table 1, reserved for Arthur Penhaligon, the ruthless CEO of Apex Global. And then there was his daughter, 7 years old, screaming. A high-pitched, terrifying scream that froze everyone in their tracks. Nannies had quit. Psychologists had failed. Even his fiancée was struggling, tugging at the girl's arm, trying to drag her out. Then a waitress appeared. Her sneakers were frayed, her apron stained, but she didn't shout or beg. She did one thing, just one thing, that made the billionaire freeze, that changed the room, maybe even history. But no one knew that this waitress carried a secret capable of toppling them all. The dinner rush at the Obsidian Room was always a high-wire act, a dance of tension and danger. For Norah, it was just another night of dodging elbows, balancing plates of sea bass, and pretending she couldn't hear the condescending remarks from Manhattan's elite. She adjusted her apron over its fraying hem. She needed this shift. Her landlord, Mr. Henderson, had made it clear, rent by Friday or she and her sick mother were out on the street. Table 1 is incoming. Gillette, the floor manager, hissed, wiping sweat from his brow. Look sharp. It's Penhaligon. The room changed immediately. Not respect, fear. Arthur Penhaligon wasn't just a billionaire. He was an institution. He owned half the skyline. But tonight, the whispers weren't about stocks or deals. They were about the tiny girl clutching his hand and the striking, blonde woman at his side. Arthur looked exhausted. His tailored suit probably cost more than Norah made in 5 years, but it did nothing to hide the weariness of a man who seemed defeated. Beside him, Isabella, his fiancée, smiled like a socialite who had spent hours practicing in the mirror. And trailing behind, Lily, the little girl, looked swallowed by her stiff formal dress, eyes darting, panicked. Sit, Lily. Isabella snapped, voice low but sharp. And for heaven's sake, stop fidgeting. The press is outside. Lily didn't sit. She stayed by the velvet chair, trembling. Norah watched from the service station. She knew that look. Not bratty behavior. Sensory overload. The clinking silverware, murmured conversations, jazz music, it was too much. All at once. Water sparkling, tasting menus in hand. Arthur didn't look up from his phone as he placed the order. 7 minutes later, disaster struck. A busboy dropped a tray of wine glasses. The crash was deafening. Lily didn't jump. She shattered. A scream ripped from her throat, primal and terrifying. She fell to the floor, covering her ears, rocking violently. Lily, stop it, Isabella hissed, grabbing her shoulder. Get up, you're embarrassing Arthur. The girl screamed louder, kicking. Her heel struck Isabella's shin. You little brat. Isabella gasped, the mask of perfection slipping. She grabbed Lily's arm, yanking aggressively. I said get up. Arthur finally stood, helpless. Isabella, stop. She's having an episode. She's acting out because you spoil her. She needs discipline. Isabella yelled back, forgetting the audience. Gillette rushed over, terrified. Mr. Penhaligon, maybe a private room? She won't move. Arthur snapped, control cracking. Can't you see she's frozen? Guests whispered. Phones emerged. This was a PR nightmare. Norah didn't think. She didn't ask Gillette. She didn't care about the rules. She grabbed a heavy linen napkin and a glass of ice water, but she didn't approach the table. Instead, she went to the light switch panel near the kitchen and dimmed the lights across the section by 50%. Then she walked straight to table 1. Get away, Isabella snapped. We don't need a waitress right now. Norah ignored her. Ignored Arthur. She dropped to her knees beside the screaming child. She didn't touch her. Didn't speak. She took the linen napkin and draped it over her head, creating a small tent. Cross-legged on the floor, she remained completely silent. Lily's screaming faltered. She stopped rocking. She stared at the figure under the napkin. Absurdity cut through the panic. Slowly, Norah lifted one corner of the napkin and peeked at Lily. No smile, no words, just fingers held up. 3, 2, 1. She dropped the corner. Lily blinked. And the room grew quieter. The lights were dimmer. The scary lady, Isabella, was standing, rigid and furious. But the strange woman on the floor, safe under her little napkin tent, stayed calm. Lily crawled forward, and the entire restaurant held its breath. Arthur Penhaligon stood frozen, mouth slightly open. Lily reached out and lifted the corner of the napkin. Norah leaned down and whispered so softly that only Lily could hear. "The world is too loud sometimes, isn't it? It's okay to hide." Lily's lower lip trembled. She nodded. "I have a secret base," Norah whispered, widening the napkin tent. "There's no noise in here." Lily crawled under with her. For 30 seconds, two people, a billionaire's daughter and a broke waitress, huddled together under a simple white linen cloth on the floor of Manhattan's most expensive restaurant. The screaming stopped completely. Norah slowly lifted the napkin. Lily sat beside her, calm, breathing steady. Norah stood, brushed off her apron, and faced a stunned Arthur. "She's sensory defensive." "Sir," Norah said, her voice calm though her heart raced. The crash overloaded her auditory processing. "When you grab her, it feels like her skin is burning." She just needed a reset. Her gaze shifted to Isabella, whose face was a mask of fury and humiliation. "And never grab a child in mid-panic. It teaches them that safety is something they have to fight for." Norah turned and walked back to the kitchen. The silence lingered for a few seconds. Then, for the first time in Obsidian Room history, someone clapped. The applause was cut short by Isabella's sharp glare, but the dynamic at table 1 had already shifted irreversibly. Arthur watched his daughter. Lily sipped water, hands steady. He glanced at Isabella, who furiously typed on her phone, no doubt trying to control the story on social media. Then he looked at the kitchen door, where the waitress had vanished. "Who is she?" he asked Gillette, hovering nervously. "Just a temp, sir." "Norah, she's new. I apologize for her informality. If you fire her, I will buy this building and evict you by morning," Arthur interrupted. Gillette paled. "Understood, sir. I'll bring her here after the meal." The rest of dinner passed in a blur for Arthur. He couldn't take his eyes off Lily. Usually after an episode, she'd be catatonic for days, refusing to eat, refusing to sleep. But tonight, she was eating pasta. She even pointed at the chandelier and whispered something to her doll. It felt like a miracle. In the kitchen, Norah was hyperventilating near the dish pit. "You are insane," whispered her coworker Ben, stacking plates. "You lectured Isabella Vance. Do you know who she is? Her father owns the tabloids. She's going to destroy you." "I couldn't watch it, Ben," Norah said, hands shaking as she scraped leftovers into the bin. "They were torturing that poor girl. Well, hope it was worth it. Gillette looks like he's about to have a stroke." 20 minutes later, the summons came. Norah walked to table 1, head held high, but calculating her savings inside 3 days before eviction. If she lost this job, Arthur Penhaligon wiped his mouth with a napkin and stood. Taller than she imagined from TV. "What's your last name, Norah?" "Kingsley, sir." "Norah Kingsley. Where did you learn that?" "The napkin trick," she said, hesitating. "My younger brother had similar struggles. We couldn't afford therapists, so I had to learn how to help him survive the world." Arthur studied her frayed shoes, tired eyes, but also a steel spine. "Lily has gone through 6 nannies in 4 months, he said quietly. "The best agencies in London and New York. None could stop an episode in under an hour. You did it in 30 seconds, he added. Isabella scoffed. Arthur, please. It was a parlor trick. She embarrassed us. She saved us, Arthur corrected coldly. He pulled a checkbook from his suit jacket, wrote quickly, tore it out, and slid it across the table. For tonight. A tip. Norah's breath hitched. $5,000. Enough to pay Mr. Henderson and buy her mother's heart medication for 3 months. I can't accept this, sir. It's too much, she said. Take it. And take this, he said, placing a sleek black business card on top. My driver will be outside tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come to my estate. We need to talk about a more permanent arrangement. Arthur's fiancée shrieked. You cannot be serious. She was just a waitress. She smelled like garlic and desperation. Norah's hand hovered over the check. Pride told her to leave it. Reality, her sick mother, the eviction notice told her to take it. She took the check. Thank you, sir, she said, voice steady. Then she looked at Lily. Bye, Lily. Remember the tent. The little girl looked up and gave a tiny, shy wave as Norah walked away. She felt Isabella's eyes burning holes into her back. She knew, with a sinking feeling, that $5,000 wasn't just a tip. It was a declaration of war. The next morning, her world collapsed before the driver even arrived. She woke in her cramped Queens apartment to pounding on the door. It's Mr. Henderson. Norah opened it to see her landlord, looking genuinely apologetic. I'm sorry, Norah. I have to evict you. Effective immediately. You have 24 hours. What? Norah gripped the doorframe. I have the money. I got a huge tip last night. I can pay you right now. It's not the rent, Henderson cut in, lowering his voice. The city health inspector and the building authority called this morning. They found violations in your unit specifically. They threatened to condemn the whole building if you aren't out. They knew your name, Norah. Someone powerful wants you gone. Norah felt the blood drain from her face. Isabella. It had to be. Petty, vindictive, with resources to ruin her life. I understand. She whispered. She closed the door, sliding down to the floor. Her mother coughed from the bedroom. They had nowhere to go. No home. And if Isabella was this vindictive, Norah probably wouldn't even have a job at the restaurant by noon. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gillette. Don't come in. You're fired. And don't use me as a reference. Tears pricked her eyes. She was being erased. She glanced at the clock. 9:45 a.m. Arthur Penhaligon's. Driver was supposed to arrive at 10 a.m. The job interview was no longer just an opportunity. It was a lifeline. If she didn't get this job, she and her mother would be homeless by nightfall. Norah wiped her face, put on her best blouse, a simple white button-down, and packed her mother's medication into her bag. Mom, she called out. I'm going out. I might have found us a new place. She stepped onto the curb just as a black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up. Miss Kingsley? The driver asked. Yes, she said, clutching her bag. Mr. Penhaligon is waiting. She got in. As the car pulled away, she noticed a black SUV parked down the street. A man inside was watching her, speaking into a phone. She wasn't just walking into a job. She was walking into a snake pit, but for her mother and for that little girl, who just wanted a quiet place to hide. Norah was ready to fight. The Penhaligon estate, known as Blackwood, wasn't a home. It was a fortress disguised as French shadow. As the Rolls-Royce crunched over the gravel driveway, Norah stared at the limestone facade. Beautiful, cold, imposing, much like the man who owned it. She gripped her handbag tight. Inside, her entire life, her ID, her mother's medication, and the void where her house keys used to be. The eviction notice still burned in her mind. Fail this interview, and she wasn't just back to being a waitress. She was back to a homeless shelter. The butler, Mr. Calloway, starched to perfection, opened the car door. Follow me, Miss Kingsley. Mr. Penhaligon is in the library. You are late. The driver picked me up at 10, Norah stammered. Mr. Penhaligon's time is currency. Do not waste it, Calloway said. He led her through hallways lined with portraits of stern ancestors. The house was dead silent, no music, no laughter, no sound of a child playing. It felt like a museum where touching the glass was punishable by law. They arrived at double mahogany doors. Calloway pushed them open. The library was massive, filled with books that looked like they had never been opened. At the center sat Arthur Penhaligon behind a desk the size of a small car. But he wasn't alone. Isabella perched on a leather sofa like a predatory bird, sipping espresso. In front of the desk stood 3 women immaculate in crisp navy suits, hair in tight buns, holding leather folios. They looked like soldiers. Norah looked down at her simple blouse and black slacks. She felt woefully underqualified. Ah, the miracle worker arrives, Isabella drawled, sarcasm dripping from every word. Arthur, are we really doing this? These women have PhDs in child psychology. She serves appetizers. Arthur ignored Isabella and looked at Norah. Take a place in line. Miss Kingsley. Norah stepped beside the third woman, a severe-looking lady who smelled of antiseptic. This is a practical interview, Arthur said, standing. He looked exhausted, dark circles deeper than the night before. Lily is in the solarium. She has refused breakfast. She has refused to get dressed. In 2 hours, the board of directors is coming for a luncheon. Lily must be presentable. He pointed to the first woman. Miss Gable, you first. 10 minutes. Miss Gable nodded confidently. I've handled tantrums for the royal family of Sweden. This will be simple. She marched out. Arthur waited, tapping his pen on the desk. 5 minutes later, screaming echoed down the hall. The same terrified shriek from the restaurant. Miss Gable returned, hair slightly askew, face flushed. The child is difficult, she admitted. She bit me. Next, Arthur said coldly. The second woman, Miss Holloway, went in. 3 minutes later, she returned, shaking her head. She's throwing porcelain figures. It's unsafe. The third woman, the antiseptic-smelling one, scoffed. Amateurs, she said, striding out. She lasted the longest 8 minutes, but came back soaking wet. She turned the hose on me, she spat, wiping her glasses. That child doesn't need a nanny. She needs a boarding school for the criminally insane. Arthur's face hardened. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Get out. All of you. You will be compensated for your time. The 3 qualified nannies filed out, muttering about impossible standards. The room fell silent. Arthur looked at Norah. Your turn. Isabella laughed. Oh, this I have to see. Go on, waitress. Go get bitten. Norah said nothing. She set her bag down, slipped off her shoes. What are you doing? Isabella wrinkled her nose. The floors are marble, Norah said calmly. Shoes click, echoes. If she's in a high sensory state, heels on stone sound like gunfire. You're approaching her like an enemy invasion. I'm going in as a ghost. She walked out of the library in her socks. Arthur stood. I want to watch. He and Isabella followed quietly down the hall to the solarium. The solarium was a glass-walled room, humid and bright, filled with exotic plants. In a corner, behind a large fern, Lily huddled in a ball, clutching a porcelain doll, breathing raggedly. A garden hose lay nearby, water still dripping. Norah didn't approach. She didn't call Lily's name. She went to the center of the room and sat on the floor, back to Lily. From her pocket, she pulled a notepad and pen. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The rhythmic sound cut through the silence. Lily stopped crying. She listened. Norah tore the page out, folded it into a paper airplane, and tossed it straight up. It looped and landed on a large monstera leaf. Another plane, another drawing, landed closer to the fern. Isabella whispered from the doorway. She's playing with trash. She, Arthur hissed. Lily peeked from behind the fern, eyes wide. She reached for the plane at her feet and unfolded it. Inside was a crude stick figure, a girl fighting a dragon. But the dragon was made of loud noises. Lily looked at Norah's back. Norah hadn't turned around. Another plane flew into Lily's lap. This one showed the stick figure girl and the waitress under a giant umbrella, safe from the noise dragon. Lily stood and walked to Norah. They sat back to back. The hose. I yelled, Lily whispered. I know, Norah said, still looking forward. Yelling is the worst. I don't want to wear the blue dress, Lily admitted. It scratches my neck. Okay, Norah said. What if we wear the white one, inside out, so the tag doesn't touch your skin? Inside out? Lily paused. It's a new fashion trend, Norah lied smoothly. Very exclusive. Lily giggled a tiny, rusty sound. Okay, Norah stood, offered a hand. Lily took it. They walked past the stunned Arthur and the fuming Isabella. We're going to get dressed now, Norah said to Arthur as they passed. And Mr. Penhaligon, the blue dress is made of synthetic tulle. It's basically sandpaper for a child with SPD. Burn it. Arthur watched them leave and let out a breath he felt he'd been holding for 5 years. She's manipulating her, Isabella snapped, crossing her arms. She's making Lily dependent on her. It's a classic con. She's the first person Lily hasn't screamed at in a month, Arthur said. She's hired. You can't hire her. Isabella's voice rose, desperate. You don't know anything about her. In fact, I did a background check this morning. She pulled a folded paper from her clutch and slammed it against Arthur's chest. She was evicted this morning, Arthur. She has no address. Her mother is sick and uninsured. She's destitute. She isn't here because she cares about Lily. She's here because she needs a roof over her head. She's a gold digger. A poor one. Arthur unfolded the paper, reading the eviction notice, the financial report. He glanced down the hall where Norah and Lily had disappeared. She didn't tell me, he murmured. Of course she didn't. She wants to embed herself in your life and siphon your money, Isabella spat. Arthur walked back to the library, his face unreadable. 30 minutes later, Norah returned. Lily was dressed in the white dress inside out. Though Norah had cleverly pinned a sash to hide the seams and was calmly coloring in a book. She's ready for the luncheon, Norah said. Arthur held up the eviction paper. Norah froze, her face pale. She looked at Isabella, who smirked triumphantly. Is this true? Arthur asked. Are you homeless as of this morning? Norah swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't beg. She straightened her spine. Yes, she said. My landlord evicted us this morning. He said he was pressured by the city, but I suspect someone else was behind it. She glanced at Isabella. But that doesn't change how I treat your daughter, Mr. Penhaligon. I need this job desperately, which means I will work harder than anyone else you could hire. Because I have everything to lose. The room was silent. Isabella waited for the explosion. Arthur hated liars. You're right, he said slowly. You do have everything to lose. He tore the eviction notice in half. The position is living. The East Wing has a guest suite. You and your mother can move in today. I'll send a truck for your belongings. Isabella dropped her espresso cup. It shattered on the floor. Arthur, you can't be serious. You're moving her mother in too? Lily needs stability, Arthur said, turning his back to Isabella. And Norah needs a home. It's a transaction. But then he turned back to Norah, eyes steely. This is a trial. 1 week. If Lily has a meltdown, if you lie to me, or if I sense you are using my daughter for financial gain, you will be out on the street, and I'll make sure you never work in this city again. Norah nodded. Heart pounding. understood. She had a home, but she had also just walked into a cage with a lioness who wanted her dead. The first 3 days at Blackwood Manor were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Norah and her mother, Elena, frail but sharp-witted, were installed in the East Wing. Luxury beyond anything known, but Norah didn't have time to enjoy Egyptian cotton sheets. She was too busy acting as a human shield for a 7-year-old girl. Isabella didn't shout. Her attacks were subtle, insidious. On Tuesday, Norah found Lily's noise-canceling headphones in the dishwasher, ruined. Isabella claimed the maid made a mistake. On Wednesday, the kitchen served a sauce loaded with texture-heavy mushrooms, triggering a gagging fit that Norah barely de-escalated before Arthur arrived. Norah fought back not by complaining to Arthur, but by outmaneuvering Isabella. When the headphones broke, she built a quiet fort of pillows in the closet. When the food was wrong, she turned Lily's inspection of her meals into a game, transforming anxiety into curiosity. Lily was blossoming. Eye contact. Real laughter, a belly laugh when Norah slipped on the polished floor in her socks. Arthur noticed. He spent more time at home, watching from doorways as Norah and Lily engaged in silent disco sessions in the living room. The ice around his heart melted, and that terrified Isabella more than anything. The climax of the week was the Apex Charity Gala, held Saturday night in the estate's grand ballroom. 500 of the city's elite, press, and shareholders. Arthur made it clear Lily had to make an appearance. His image as a family man after the restaurant incident depended on it. Saturday morning, Norah told Lily, "We're going to practice. Walk in, wave, smile, accept one flower, and then we escape to the Bat Cave." "And I can wear my sensory cape?" Lily asked. "The velvet wrap?" Norah promised. The dress for the evening had been custom-made, soft, seamless silk in pale blue, designed by Norah and a local seamstress she trusted. Paid for by Arthur. Perfect. At 5 p.m. 2 hours before the guests arrived, Norah went to the nursery to help Lily get dressed. She opened the wardrobe and froze. The blue silk dress was gone. In its place hung a stiff crinoline-heavy pink dress, covered in scratchy sequins and tight elastic. Panic flared in Norah's chest. She checked the drawers. "Nothing, Norah?" Lily asked, sensing the tension. "Where's my soft dress?" "Just a second, sweetie," Norah said, storming into the hallway, nearly colliding with Isabella. Isabella was radiant in a stunning crimson gown, her smile icy. "Where is it?" Norah demanded, voice low. "Where is what, dear?" Isabella cooed. "Lily's dress. The silk one." "Oh, that rag," Isabella laughed lightly. "I had it sent to the cleaners. It looked wrinkled. I replaced it with something more appropriate. A Penhaligon doesn't wear homemade clothes." "That pink dress is torture for her," Norah hissed. "The sequins feel like needles. She'd have a meltdown in 5 minutes." "Then you better make sure she doesn't," Isabella whispered, stepping closer. Her perfume, a heavy, musky floral, made Norah's nose itch. "If she screams tonight in front of the investors, Arthur will blame you. He'll see that you can't control her, and you'll be packing your bags tonight." Isabella turned and floated away. Norah checked her watch. 1 hour until the gala. No time to retrieve the silk dress. No time to make a new one. Back in the nursery, Lily stared at the pink dress with wide-eyed terror. "I can't wear it," Lily whimpered. "It hurts, just looking at it." Norah's eyes scanned the room desperately. Soft fabric, seamless, breathable. Her gaze landed on Arthur's closet, which connected to the nursery suite. A huge risk. "Lily, wait here," Norah whispered, slipping into Arthur's dressing room. It smelled of cedar and expensive cologne. She rifled through the rack suits, stiff shirts, nothing soft enough. Then she saw it. A stack of pristine cashmere sweaters and a row of silk pocket squares. She grabbed a pair of scissors from the sewing kit she always carried. A large white cashmere sweater, clearly unused, and a handful of blue silk handkerchiefs. Norah. She spun. Arthur stood in the doorway, wrapped in a towel, just out of the shower. He looked from the scissors to the sweater to her. "What on earth are you doing?" "Is that my cashmere?" "I need this," Norah said, voice shaking but determined. Isabella took Lily's dress and replaced it with sequins. If Lily wears sequins, she'll scream. If she wears this cashmere, she'd be safe. "You're cutting up a $2,000 sweater?" Arthur asked incredulously. "I'd cut up the Mona Lisa if it kept her calm," Norah snapped. "Charge me for it." She ran back to the nursery. Arthur stood stunned. No one spoke to him like that. Norah worked like a magician. She cut the arms off the sweater to make a sleeveless tunic and used the silk handkerchiefs to create a soft sash, covering rough edges. It wasn't Dior, it was improved, deconstructed chic. "Put it on," Norah told Lily. "It's a cloud dress." Lily touched the cashmere. She smiled. By 7 p.m., the ballroom was packed. Music swelled. Norah had discreetly given Lily earplugs that looked like pearl earrings. Arthur waited at the bottom of the grand staircase, nervous. Isabella clutched his arm, ready for disaster. "I really don't think she's up for it." "Arthur," Isabella murmured, loud enough for nearby investors to hear. "That new nanny is incompetent." Then the music swelled again. Norah appeared at the top of the stairs, holding Lily's hand. Lily wasn't screaming. She wasn't scratching. She descended in a white cashmere tunic with a blue silk sash, looking like a winter angel, comfortable, calm. Arthur looked up. He recognized his sweater. He recognized the silk from his pocket squares. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Lily reached the bottom. She walked straight to the board chairman, curtsied, and said softly, "Welcome to our home." The room melted. The investors cooed. It was a complete triumph. Isabella looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Later that night, after Lily was finally asleep, Norah stood in the kitchen making tea. Her hands shook from exhaustion. The house was quiet in that heavy, after-the-storm way. Arthur walked in. He was still wearing his tuxedo, tie loosened, jacket open. "The sweater will be deducted from your paycheck," he said. But his voice was warm, almost amused. "Fair enough," Norah replied. Leaning against the counter, he studied her for a moment. "Why didn't you tell me Isabella took the dress?" Norah met his eyes. "Would you have believed me? Or would it have sounded like the nanny blaming the fiancée?" Arthur didn't answer right away. He poured himself a glass of water. "You saw the problem," he said finally. "And you solved it. You didn't complain. I respect that." He stepped closer. The air between them suddenly felt charged, unfamiliar. "You saved the night." "Norah, I did it for Lily, I know." Suddenly, a piercing shriek ripped through the east wing. Norah froze. That wasn't Lily. Her mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "Mom!" she whispered. She ran. Arthur ran after her. They burst into the guest suite. Norah's mother was on the floor, gasping for air, clutching her chest. Her face had turned blue. "Mom!" Norah dropped to her knees, fingers shaking as she checked her pulse. It was erratic. "She's having a reaction," Norah said urgently. "Where's her medication?" "I put it right here," her mother rasped. "On the knitstand." The knitstand was empty. "The pills are gone." "I took them," her mother gasped. "But they didn't work." Norah grabbed the empty water glass beside the bed. She sniffed it. There was a faint but unmistakable scent of bitter almond. And beneath it, that same heavy, musky floral perfume. Isabella. Arthur was already on his phone. "Get a paramedic unit here now." Norah looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Someone switched her pills, or tampered with her water. Arthur's gaze dropped to the knitstand. He noticed a smudge of red lipstick on the rim of the glass deep crimson. The same shade Isabella had worn that evening. The war had just crossed a line, and in that moment, Norah understood with chilling clarity. Isabella wasn't just trying to get her fired. She was trying to eliminate the competition permanently. The VIP wing of St. Jude's Hospital was quiet, filled with the sterile scent of antiseptic and expensive lily. Arthur Penhaligon sat in a plastic chair outside room 402, his head in his hands. Inside, Norah sat beside the bed, holding her mother's pale hand. In the chaos of the ambulance ride, the paramedics had corrected the intake error. Her name was Martha, not Alina, as the confused nurse had written. The doctors had pumped her stomach. Dr. Sterling stepped out of the room, his expression grave. "She's stable," he said. But this wasn't an accident. The dosage in her system was 5 times the lethal limit for her weight. If Norah hadn't recognized the symptoms immediately, she was poisoned. Arthur finished, his voice rough like crushed gravel. "Yes," the doctor said. "This is a police matter now." Arthur entered the room. Norah looked up at him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face drained of color. She looked small, defeated. "I have to leave," she whispered. "I can't stay at Blackwood. It's too dangerous. She came after my mother, Arthur. Next time it could be me. Or worse, Lily." "You're not leaving," Arthur said. The command hung in the air. "If you go, she wins," he continued. "And I lose the only person who's made my daughter smile in 3 years. She almost killed my mother." Norah cried. Her voice cracked. "This isn't a job anymore. It's a death trap." Arthur knelt beside her chair, an act of submission no billionaire ever made lightly. "I sent the glass to the lab," he said quietly. "And I sent the hallway security footage to my private team, not the house staff. I don't trust anyone at the manor right now." He met her eyes, "Except you." His phone buzzed. Arthur glanced at the screen. His expression shifted from worry to something cold and murderous. "What is it?" Norah asked. He turned the phone toward her. It was a high-resolution still from the hallway camera. Outside the guest suite. The image showed someone slipping into the room at 7:45 p.m. The figure wore a maid's uniform, but the shoes were unmistakable, red-soled stilettos. "Isabella, she didn't even bother to change her shoes," Arthur murmured. "She thinks she's untouchable." "She is untouchable," Norah said bitterly. "Her father's a senator. You're a billionaire. People like her don't go to jail. They disappear to spas in Switzerland until the news cycle forgets." "Not this time," Arthur said. Then he leaned closer. "But I need you to trust me." Norah frowned. "Trust you how?" "I need you to go back to the house tonight." She stared at him. "Are you insane?" "I need you to look defeated," Arthur said, his eyes burning with calculated intent. "Pack your bags, cry, let her think she's won." He lowered his voice. "Let her see you broken. If she thinks you're leaving, she'll get sloppy," Arthur said quietly. "She'll rush." She tried to make her final move and lock down that engagement ring. Norah looked at her mother sleeping in the hospital bed. Then she looked at Arthur. Then at Lily. "Lily goes with me to the office tomorrow," Norah said firmly. "I'm not letting her out of my sight. But I need you at the house finding proof." Arthur nodded. "Isabella keeps a ledger," Norah continued. "She's obsessive about money. If she paid my landlord to evict me, if she bought the digitalis, the receipt will be in her suite." Arthur's jaw tightened. "You want me to break into Isabella Vance's room?" "No," Arthur said coldly. "I want you to destroy her." The next morning, the performance began. Norah returned to Blackwood Manor with puffy eyes, carrying cardboard boxes. She made sure Mr. Calloway heard her loudly announce that she was quitting. Isabella sat on the patio, casually eating half a grapefruit. She watched Norah load the taxi trunk with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Leaving so soon?" Isabella called sweetly. "I do hope your mother recovers. Old hearts are so fragile." Norah clenched her jaw. She had to sell it. "You win, Isabella," she said, voice breaking just enough. "I can't fight you. I just want my family safe." "Smart girl," Isabella purred. "Go back to serving tables. It's what you were born for." Norah climbed into the taxi, but she didn't leave Dot as soon as the car rounded the long curve of the driveway. She ducked down. The driver, one of Arthur's private security. Men circled back and pulled into the service entrance behind the estate. Norah slipped inside through the scullery. Dressed head to toe in black tactical gear Arthur had provided, she was now a ghost in the house she had supposedly just left. Arthur had given her the master key code. Norah waited until Isabella left for her Pilates class at 11 a.m. Then she entered the Lion's Den, Isabella's suite in the West Wing, was a shrine to vanity. Mirrors everywhere. Designer furniture. Everything pristine and cold. Norah searched. Fast. Drawers. Closets. Under the mattress. Nothing. Panic began to creep in. Isabella would be back within the hour. Norah stopped. Closed her eyes. Forced herself to breathe. She leaned on what had kept her alive for years: observation. Memory, instinct. Isabella was always on her phone or scribbling in a small leather planner she carried inside her Hermes bag, but she never took that bag to Pilates. Norah turned toward the walk-in closet. On the top shelf sat a neat row of designer handbags. Norah grabbed the Birkin Isabella had carried the day before and dumped the contents. Lipstick, compact, breath, mince. And then her fingers found a hidden seam, a false bottom. Paper. Norah pulled it free. It wasn't a diary. It was a passport. The name wasn't Isabella Vance. It read Maggie O'Connell. Beneath it was a folded letter from a law firm in the Cayman Islands. Miss O'Connell, the transfer of funds from the Penn Halligan charity account is complete. The $4 million has been laundered as requested. We await your arrival on Monday. Norah's breath caught. Isabella wasn't just a jealous fiance acute. She was a professional con artist. A grifter. The senator's daughter's story was either fabricated or stolen. She wasn't marrying Arthur for love or status. She was draining his accounts and disappearing. And Monday was 2 days away. Norah raised her phone to take a picture. Click. The sound of a door opening downstairs turned her blood to ice. "I forgot my yoga mat." Isabella's voice echoed up the stairs. Norah was trapped. Closet had no second exit. Footsteps approached. Click, clack, heels on hardwood. Norah looked up. The ventilation shaft. Narrow, dusty, high. But Norah had spent years climbing unstable shelves in restaurant PNTRIES. She kicked off her shoes, stepped onto the vanity, and hauled herself up. Prying the grate loose, she slid inside and pulled it back into place just as the bedroom door opened. Through the slats, she watched Isabella enter. Isabella went straight to the closet. Straight to the Birkin. She checked the false bottom. Isabella froze. She knew. Isabella pulled out her phone. She didn't call the police. "It's me," she hissed. "The waitress found the stash. I don't know how, but the papers are moved. We have to accelerate." A pause. "Forget the gala. Grab the girl today. I'm burning the house down." Norah clamped a hand over her mouth inside the vent. Isabella wasn't running. She was planning to kidnap Lily for ransom and burn Blackwood Manor to erase everything. Norah had to move. She couldn't call Arthur. The thick metal vents killed her signal. She had to get out, and she had to get to Lily. Norah crawled through the ductwork, metal scraping her knees raw. navigating by memory of the house layout. At last, she kicked out a vent in the basement laundry room. She tumbled onto the floor, covered in dust and soot. Then she ran straight for the garage. The security car was gone. Isabella must have seen it. Norah's eyes landed on a gardener's truck. Keys in the ignition. She didn't hesitate. She jumped in, started it, and peeled out of the driveway, gravel spraying everywhere. She called Arthur as she sped down the highway toward the Apex Tower. "Arthur, it's a setup. Isabella is Maggie O'Connell, a con artist. She's coming for Lily now. She's going to burn the house." "I have Lily," Arthur said, his voice tight but controlled. "We're in my office on the 40th floor. Security is on high alert. Isabella can't get in here. You don't understand." Norah screamed over the roar of the engine. "She's not coming through the front door. She has an accomplice." "Who is your head of security?" "Garen," Arthur said. "He's been with me for 10 years. Is he the one who drove the SUV? The one who watched me get evicted?" Norah's voice trembled. There was a pause. "Arthur." "Garen is in the room with us," Arthur whispered. The line went dead at the Apex Tower. The nightmare unfolded in seconds. Arthur turned to Garen. A mountain of a man standing by the office door. Garen. "Hand me your radio," Arthur said. Garen didn't move. A cold, mercenary smile spread across his face. "Sorry, boss. The retirement package Maggie offered me. Too good to pass up." He drew a silenced pistol. "Get up. You and the brat. We're going to the roof. The helicopter is waiting. Don't touch her." Arthur roared, stepping in front of Lily. "Move, and I shoot you in the leg," Garen said casually. "The girl is the ticket. You're just excess baggage." Lily began to whimper, rocking and covering her ears. The stress was triggering a massive episode. "Shut that kid up." Garen snapped. Norah reached the Apex Tower lobby. Chaos, fire alarms blaring. Isabella's distraction. People streamed out. Norah pushed against the tide, fighting her way to the security desk. "I need to get to the 40th floor. Penhaligon is in trouble," she shouted. "Elevators are locked down, lady." A guard yelled. Norah scanned the digital schematics on the wall. Elevators were down. Stairs clogged with evacuees. But there was a service lift, the dumbwaiter system used for catering and mail. Small, dangerous, manual. She ran to the loading bay. Found the service shaft, a vertical tunnel of grease and darkness. She grabbed the cables. She didn't have the strength to pull herself 40 floors, but she knew the physics. Counterweight. She scanned the dock. A pallet of heavy printer paper. Perfect. She hooked the counter cable to the pallet. Shoved it off the ledge into the basement pit. The pallet plummeted. Norah grabbed the rising cable and held on for dear life. She shot up the shaft like a rocket, flying past floor numbers. 10. 20. 30. She braced her feet against the walls as she neared 40, friction burning through her sneaker soles. She pried the doors open and rolled onto the plush carpet of the 40th floor, gasping. The floor was empty. Staff had evacuated. Voices came from the CEO's office. Norah crept forward, peered through the frosted glass. Garen had Arthur on his knees. Isabella, having arrived via the private helipad, held a syringe. "Just put her to sleep, Garen," Isabella ordered. "She's screaming too much." Garen advanced toward Lily. Norah looked around. No weapons. She was a waitress's. She spotted the office bar, high-end espresso machine, a bottle of high-proof brandy, a lighter on Arthur's desk. Waitress skills. Flambe. She grabbed the brandy in a heavy crystal ashtray. She kicked the door open. "Hey, Maggie." Norah yelled. Isabella spun. Garen turned his gun toward Norah. Norah flung the brandy bottle into the air over Garen's head. As he tracked it, she hurled the crystal ashtray with perfect aim. It smashed the bottle midder, soaking Garen in high-proof alcohol. Now Lily. The button. Norah screamed. Lily, hiding under the desk near the panic button Arthur had shown her once, slammed her fist down. The panic button didn't call the police lines were cut, but it activated the office's emergency lockdown. Halon gas fire, suppression and blast shutters, before the gas could hit. Sparks from Garen's muzzle flash ignited the alcohol soaking his suit. Garen burst into flames, screaming, flailing. Dropping the gun, Isabella lunged for it. Norah tackled her. They crashed into the glass coffee table. Isabella, fueled by rage, pinned Norah down, hands around her throat. "Oh, you miserable little servant," Isabella shrieked. "I had it all. I was going to be a queen." Norah's vision blurred. She clawed at Isabella's face, desperate. Suddenly, a small figure appeared behind Isabella. It was Lily. Lily held the heavy brass telescope from her father's desk. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She swung it with all her might. Clanged up the telescope connected with the back of Isabella's head. Isabella's eyes rolled back. She slumped forward, unconscious, landing on top of Norah. Norah shoved her off and gasped for air. Arthur was there in an instant, pulling Norah up, checking her neck. "Norah, are you okay?" "I'm okay," Norah wheezed. They looked at Lily. The little girl dropped the telescope, staring at her shaking hands. Norah crawled over and pulled Lily into her arms. She didn't say, "Good job." She didn't say, "Don't be scared." She pulled the linen napkin from her pocket, the one she always kept, and draped it over both of their heads. "Tent time," Norah whispered. Under the napkin. Amidst the chaos of sprinklers dousing the flaming Garen and an unconscious con artist, Lily leaned her head against Norah's chest and sobbed. "It's over," Arthur said, wrapping his arms around the two women who had saved his life. "It's finally over." The trial of Isabella Vance, a.k.a. Maggie O'Connell, and her accomplice Garen became the media event of the decade. The evidence Norah had secured from the false bottom bag, combined with Mr. Henderson's testimony, he flipped immediately when faced with jail time, was damning. Isabella was sentenced to 25 years for fraud, attempted kidnapping, and attempted murder, but Norah didn't attend the sentencing. She was busy packing. 2 months had passed since the attack at the tower. Martha had fully recovered and was in the garden with Lily, planting tulips. Norah folded her last waitress uniform and placed it in the box. She felt a presence in the doorway. It was Arthur. "Calloway tells me you ordered a moving truck," he said, leaning against the doorframe, more relaxed than she had ever seen him. No tie, sleeves rolled up. "It's time," Norah said without looking at him. "The danger is gone. You don't need a bodyguard anymore. And you can hire a real governess for Lily now, one with a degree, not a GED. Is that what you think you are? Just a bodyguard?" "I was a transaction," Norah said, voice trembling slightly. "You needed stability. I needed a home. The contract is done." "The contract was for a week," Arthur said. "You've been here 3 months. You overstayed your welcome." Norah picked up the box. "I'm going back to Queens. I'm going to finish my nursing degree. It's for the best." She tried to walk past him. Arthur blocked her path. "I fired the board of directors," he said casually. Norah paused. "What?" "The ones who cared about the image. The ones who judged Lily. I fired them. I'm taking the company private. I want to spend my time on things that matter." He took the box from her hands and set it on the floor. "You aren't a waitress, Norah. You aren't a nanny. You are the only person who saw my daughter as a human being, not a broken object. You are the only person who saw me as a man, not a bank account." He reached into his pocket. Norah's heart hammered. Was he offering her money? A severance package? He pulled out a piece of paper. It was a drawing. The drawing Lily had made in the solarium on the first day, the stick figure, girl and stick figure waitress under the umbrella. safe from the dragon. But Lily had added something new, a third stick figure. A tall man holding the umbrella handle. Lily drew this morning, Arthur said softly. She calls it the family. Tears spilled over Norah's lashes. Arthur, I can't. People will talk. They'll say I'm just another gold digger like Isabella. They'll say the waitress seduced the billionaire. Let them talk, Arthur said, stepping closer. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. Let them talk while we live. I don't care about the world, Norah. I care that this house was a tomb before you walked in. And if you leave, the lights go out again. I don't want the lights to go out, Norah whispered. Arthur lowered his head and kissed her. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was desperate, real, full of promise beyond contracts. A kiss that tasted of second chances. Don't go, he murmured against her lips. Okay, she breathed. I'll stay. 5 years later. The headline on Forbes read, The New Legacy, How Arthur and Norah Penhaligon Changed Autism Advocacy. Norah didn't care about the magazine. She stood on the deck of the Hamptons summer house. The door opened. A 12-year-old girl stepped out. Lily. She was wearing headphones, but she was smiling. She held her acceptance letter in her hand. I got into the STEM program. Mom, Lily said. Norah, who had legally adopted Lily 3 years ago, beamed. I knew you would. You're a genius with codes. Dad is crying in the kitchen, Lily noted dryly. He's trying to hide it, but he's making pancakes and sniffing. Norah laughed. She walked into the kitchen. Arthur was indeed flipping pancakes, dabbing his eyes with a dish towel. Martha was sitting at the counter, stealing blueberries, looking healthy and happy. Arthur saw Norah and smiled. It was a smile of pure contentment. She got in, Arthur said. She did, Norah replied, wrapping her arms around his waist. You know, Arthur said, kissing her forehead. I still owe you for that cashmere sweater. Put it on my tab, Norah winked. They had built a life not on perfection, but on understanding. They learned that love wasn't about shouting the loudest. It was about sitting together in the quiet, under the napkin, until the world felt safe again. And in the end, the waitress didn't just serve the billionaire. She saved him. And that is the story of how one act of kindness, and a little bit of waitress grit, took down a criminal empire and built a family. It just goes to show. Never underestimate the person serving your coffee. They might just be the strongest person in the room. If you love this story of karma, romance and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. What did you think of Isabella's punishment? Did she get what she deserved? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.